Hello and welcome to Inkscape for Teachers. I've been asked recently about how to put measurements, say, on a rectangle with arrows without obscuring the arrows or the arrows obscuring the measurements. So there's a bit of white space around here. Now this one's done with just creating a white rectangle and putting it in between the text and the arrow. But I want to show you another way that I think is a bit more impressive, a bit more fiddly, but it might be something you're interested in. So let's scroll down and I'll just show you how people have done this up to now when I've been asked how I've recommended they do it. If I draw a rectangle from scratch, just around the text, something like that, and fill it with white, take out the line background border by shift clicking the red cross here, and then just moving this to the back, selection arrow up here, move to the back, and the arrow, if I click on that, move that further to the back by clicking the back button again, and you can get that effect. I won't do it on this one. Another way to do it is to break the arrow. If I click on the arrow here and then N for the node tool, and it doesn't matter where, just double click to put in a new node. With that node highlighted, click this icon up here, break path of selected nodes, back to the select tool, and you can see that it looks still connected. So Control Shift K to really break it apart, and that does that. But the trouble is then you've got you see this style here. You're best to do this before you put the arrowheads on. So I'll just drag that there, and I'll just adjust each arrow. We want this one not to have an arrowhead on it, and with this one, if I click on it, and under the fill and stroke menu I'm operating here, I want this one not to have an arrowhead on it, so you can do it that way. So that's another way. A third way is to use an effect, and I saw this online somewhere and I've sort of modified it a little bit perhaps. If we click on, say, the 150, the measurement, and under filters, I would never have thought to look here, filters, shadows and glows, cut out glow. And we don't actually want a glowing effect or anything, but we're starting with an effect and we'll modify it using the filter effect editor under here. So with that selected filter editor, you can see there's one effect here. I'll just widen this window here. I'll drag this one back a bit. That's the cut out glow. But we can adjust these settings. Now be careful in here, but on the offset, if I click on that, I can see the delta X. I'm going to change that to negative 100%. So we want it to start before the box, the white background before the text, vertically and horizontally. I'm not super expert on this, but just follow these settings and it should work out. So I've adjusted delta X to negative 100, the same for delta Y under the offset. This all looks pretty complicated to me, but we'll just work through it. Under Gaussian blur, change that to the minimum. So if you use the down arrows, or you can only get down to 0.01, but we're using a white blur on a white background, so you won't notice the blur, hopefully. Anyway, so that's another setting. Under flood colour, under here, click on the colour and change that to white. You can do that by just leave the hash there and putting 6 Fs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and going OK. And under composite, I think, is that, yeah, that's the last one. I can scroll up in here. Under composite, change this to destination over. And that's just about it. Just one more thing. Under general settings, it doesn't matter which one of these you're on, leave the setting here, the X coordinate of the left corner is negative 0.01, but change the dimension, the one over here, which is the Y coordinate, to negative 0.32. I found better. You can fiddle with this yourself depending on the text size you're using, all sorts of things. And this one here, the height of the effect, change this to 1.6. Just take a note of those settings. Okay, with that done, I'll go back over here, and this time, if it's not, doesn't look like it's fixed it, but if I click on the text, I'll zoom in a bit. If I click on the text and then just bring it to the front, you can see it's got a white background around it. You might say, well, that's a lot of fiddling, but once you've got one of these you can keep it and copy and paste it. But the big advantage is if I use T for the text tool or click the text icon here, if I want to change this, notice what happens. The box expands, or the white background expands, so that you don't have to do any more adjustment. You can drag that back in wherever you want to put it. So I think that's pretty good. The only fault I've seen with it is if you have a really long text string in here, you might notice that the space between where the arrow starts and the white space increases. I think that's something to do with the not being able to get that blur to a minimum of 0. But since in most cases you're just dealing with a few digits, you don't really notice the difference, and that's it's a dynamic effect. The white background will move with the text, which I think is pretty good. What you can do is just keep this and copy and paste. For example, if I Control C, Control V over here, you can see that that white space is around there. So I'll get rid of that one, and you can just copy this and paste it from one Inkscape document to another. Okay, but until then, bye for now and thanks for watching.